and welcome to the LSEG developer community. Today we're going to be looking through the LSEG data library for Python get history function. Now you can have a look at more details right there in this notebook that I'm using inside of Visual Studio Code. Now you can use this inside of a codebook as well. I've just used it there in order to have the pretty pictures I'm showing you right there. I wanted to show you this very quickly in order for you to have a quick understanding of what we're doing here. So what we're doing with this Python wrapper, this library that we're using here within the LSEG data library, is we're pinging for data or for services inside of the LSEG data platform. Now, I'm not going to be speaking too long about this. However, here you have very many APIs. So as you can see here, bottom left to bottom right, we've got some 3 dots everywhere around. There isn't only just 6 APIs inside that data platform, but it goes all the way from pricing APIs to ESG APIs through things like IPAs that are not databases, but they're more like services. And what we've done with the LSEG data library for Python is that we've created these easy to use functions and modules such as get data and get history, all the way to search and delivery endpoints for you to access these services and this data on the LSEG data platform. Now there is actually a bit more to it. It's not just the LSEG data platform. There's more data and more services than this, but you can think of it holistically in that fashion. Now there are 3 layers to the I'm going to call it the LD library because the LSEG data library is a bit long. The LD library for Python, the access layer, content layer, and delivery layer. On the access layer, you have some very simple functions. So I'm going to do things like ld.getData, ld.getHistory, and in the content layer, it's a little bit more complicated. Usually it's for services. So I'm going to be doing some pricing services, some IPA services, which are more for curves and curve building. And then you have the most complex layer, really the delivery layer, where you would have to know the endpoints, which are the addresses where you'd be sending your requests, and you'd have to know exactly how to send your request for that data to be coming back to you with your results. And you'd have to know exactly how these results are returning from these endpoints, from these addresses inside of these APIs, in order to manipulate it on your end when you receive the data using the delivery layer right there, the delivery endpoint request function here. For now, though, we're not going to go into so much detail. We're going to stick with the access layer here with the get history function for today. Again, if you're interested in learning more about all of this, there's more written right here that you can have a look at in the notebook that you can find on GitHub. First of all, you can install your library with pip install. So pip install lseg.data. However, I've already done it on my end, so I'm not going to run this again. And you can import your library. So here I'm going to import lseg.data as LD. I've just abbreviated it to LD, and I'm going to be opening my session. So here, what I'm doing is I'm using the desktop session, which means I need to have my desktop application running on the same machine where I'm running my code. Here I'm using workspace, but it works with icon. I'm going to be running this ld.open session. I'm authenticating myself to the LSEG services using the workspace application, the desktop application, in which I have logged in already using my credentials. So now I don't have to write my credentials again. I don't have to write my password and my email in there or anything as such. It's already all there for me. You can use the platform session. I'm going to speak about this in a second, where you don't have to have your desktop application running on the same machine where you're running your code. Going on swiftly onwards, I can now allocate memory to this data frame that I'm creating. I'm going to call it df4. Let's run this cell. And as you might have seen already, because I was running it before this video, it's going to come up into an error. Now, why would there be an error? Well, in this case, it's because I'm not using the arguments correctly. As you can see, there are many arguments, so more anyway than with something like the get data function. We have a universe, so that's quite simply what you might expect. So I have my universe of RICs, the identifier codes that we have here. So this is a RIC for an equity, a company. So LSEG in this respect, you can have more than one. So here I've only got one, but I can put them in a list. So here I've got LSEG.L, and I can put something else like SFT, maybe Microsoft or something like this, and it's going to fetch the same data, but just for two companies instead. I have my fields, which you can find out more about with the data item browser, which is an application within Workspace, which you can find by just going on the search bar at the top. Actually, I'm going to show you very quickly here. There you go. If you were to go there and type DIB, you're going to find data item browser, and you can find where you can find your fields right here. You can have your interval. So here I went for H because I wanted hourly. You got your start, your end. You can adjust things as well, and you can find out how to adjust things with the the code creator application, which you can find on Workspace as well on the desktop application. And last but not least, we have our count. Now, our count is an argument that shows you the maximum results you want, the maximum rows you want in the data frame that's being returned from your function here. So I've got everything right there. As you can see, the max is 10,000, and yet it's giving me an error. Now, why do I have this error? I've obviously done it on purpose because I wanted to show you the errors you can get. And here we've got one telling you that the interval is incorrect. H does not mean hour. Okay, so what can I use for hour? If I was to look at the results that come up, I can have tick, I can have minutes, we can go on, and here I've got hourly. Okay, so now I can just select this, copy it, and as you can probably guess, I've already done this and pasted it right there. Now, if you were to run this, we have our data frame. So again, I'm overwriting, well, it hasn't been created, but if the F4 was a data frame that was created before, here I'm going to be overwriting over that data frame, and notice it's giving me a pandas data frame as a result, just the same as a get data, another function you can use to get a bit more raw data that is closer to the databases that you are pinging within the LSEG services. The get history function has more functionality than the get data function. And instead of just getting you the data in this raw form and the way it looks in a data in a pandas data frame, it's going to go through some row fidelity, through a little bit of logic to make sure that if you were to do something like ask for equity data and maybe commodities data, and for the commodities you're looking for the volume in terms of kilograms or something like this. Obviously this does not apply to a company like LSEG here, so you may have some row fidelity issues where you have some NaN, not a number, a bit scattered everywhere in your data frame. Here this should be less likely thanks to these functionalities that we've added in the get history function here. And as you can tell, you can even go for intraday data. So here I asked for hourly data, and this is the format that you'd use to go from the start to the end within that function. You can have a look at all of these arguments here. So we've got these arguments that I've shown you there with the help function. Now this is a native Python function that works with most functions that exist within Python. And here I have my get history LSEG data library function, and we have parameters information right there. I mean, there's quite a bit more here. You have all of the parameters. You can scroll down. You've got header type as well, which is quite similar to the get data function. And you can go on with some examples even to see how you can use all this. I've spoken just briefly about the data item browser. You can have a look in there to find your fields. Last but not least, we're going to close our session before we open our platform session. Now, the platform session is one where you do not need your workspace desktop application running on the same machine where you're running your code, because what you can do is that you can specify your credentials inside a file like this. This is a configuration file. On my end, it is saved in this location right there. And this is the name of the file in question. I've put a little picture of what it would look like on my machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say to the LSEG data library, I'm going to tell it, okay, my configuration file is there. That's what it is named. And this is the name of the session that I want to use. Now, I have renamed my session here. If you have to look at line 17, here it says RDP. Well, I've renamed mine JL RDP just because I wanted a piece of my name in there to make sure that I know which session I'm using. And here I'm going to be using my platform session, which means that I do not need to have my workspace desktop application running in the background for it to work. What does that mean? Well, it means that I'm going to be logged out of my workspace application. Here I've got my workspace application and I'm logged in. However, it's SSO, single users only. Therefore, I have to close my workspace. Now I have to make sure it is closed. I'm just going to exit out of it right there. And once it is closed, let's make sure I've closed my session. I think I have. But let's just make sure that I close my desktop session in order for me to then open my platform session. And I've got it right here. There you go. It's going to authenticate me to the services using the credentials I've got inside my file. Let's move on whilst it's doing this because I've already run my code below. And I have my get history function. And again, it's exactly the same get history function as I had before with the same arguments and the same ways you can use it. By the way, if you have any questions about these things and about how to use our library and our functions, don't hesitate to go onto developers.lseg.com. So if I was to do this right here, you'll see the site where you can find information on all of our APIs, ranging from the LSEG data library all the way to things such as Yieldbook, or even the Icon data library, which is the older one for all this, and a lot more information about the data platform itself. We also have articles where we go through some specific use cases, some developer tools where you can find the API playground. And the API playground could be useful for you because you may be looking at which endpoints you want to use inside your delivery endpoints, or even just a documentation about how these work, as well as plenty more right here, such as use cases, where we amalgamate all of these articles, videos, and information inside use cases of artificial intelligence, sustainable finance, and on. And of course, you can use the Q&A, which is our tiny little Stack Overflow, speaking just about the LSEG API for technical questions, for those of you who don't know what Stack Overflow is. This is just the one for technical questions on the LSEG technologies. Okay. Moving onwards, we're going to be talking about newer functions, maybe more complex functions, but for now, we're gonna stop here. Thanks for watching.